PDX scanner is back, which means I have time to do some more of this. Plus, there's another board meeting next week. So, and I'm only this meeting's in 3 hours, and I'm only an hour and a half through it. And meanwhile, there's just insane amount of action at TriMet. Insane. Here, listen to this, for example.
This is important because we've heard over and over and over how fare evasion will not be treated as a crime. Listen to what this fare Nazi says. Okay, you heard it. If you don't pay fare, we're going to arrest you.
All right, so he has said an official person who's doing the actual fare enforcement has just said, for the record, that they will arrest you if you don't produce your fare, which undoes all of the management and the board's baloney. And as a matter of fact, the cops did come. They didn't arrest them, but they did issue a what is it, exclusion order for 6 hours because he wouldn't produce his fare. So producing fare can be treated as a criminal offense, and they sent for the police, which means it was criminalized. They didn't arrest him, but it could have happened, and this guy is telling people that. Oh, and by the way, I've noticed that the fare inspection is all diverse now, and it came to my brilliant mind how the total collapsing TriMet, it's in total collapse right now. They're doing everything wrong, but it's all diverse now. They've ruined their system in the name of diversity, is what I see. They have a diverse board who's just as bad as the white man board, and they have diverse fare Nazis who are just as bad as white man fare Nazis. So I hope you all see that, because now you know diversity means nothing for the poor people, other than it's good for the people who are involved in the multiple crime syndicates that are called government agencies. Now they get a chance to oppress people themselves. I guess, is that progress? You tell me. I guess that's supposed to be progress, that they put some minorities in charge of the oppression instead of just always being the ones that are oppressed. But it doesn't help people that are still being oppressed. Also, if you look at Jason has gone through this map, and he has circled all the errors on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 23, 24. 24 errors on this map that they paid Jarrett Walker $375,000 to produce. This is Jason, who is a hobbyist like myself, who did a better job with this than Jarrett Walker. Of course, he didn't get a response because, let's see, did he get a response? Nope. Okay, here's a second version. He found more issues. Okay, he knows what he's doing. Yeah, I'm gonna tweet this to @HumanTransit. He hasn't blocked me, but which he did block me, but he's unblocked me. So I'm gonna tweet him that. I don't know. He won't publish my comments. That guy won't. I've commented on his blog. He won't publish me. And not only that, but Lane Jensen has, good old Lane, he found out that there was this notice is sent to you. This is from Nova. Nova Bus has submitted a recall notice that generated a safety recall. The equipment can be remedied starting August 10th, folks. Can you see this? Let me expand it. August 10th. So this has been in TriMet's possession since August 10th. The remedy takes approximately 3 hours to complete. Okay, and what's the problem? Certain affected steering gear may be assembled with fewer than required number of recirculating balls, which can lead to a fracture in the steering gear worm shaft and loss of steering. So that's a safety. That's an actual safety problem there. And yet TriMet put these buses out on the road, and according to Lane and his connections, it was because the executives wanted this thing rolled out on time. Period. They didn't care about anything else. So there you got another one here. Was there anything else here? Yeah, nah. It's just a shit show over there, folks. It's just a horrible shit show. And these are unaccountable. Oh yeah, there is one other thing. So if Darzan, what's her name? Darzan? The Republican. I don't know her name. If she wins, everybody's freaked out about what happens to TriMet. Well, my guess is nothing will happen to them, but I mean, there is a possibility of her clearing out the board. I don't know if it would ever happen because, the left right paradigm is basically a fake. It's a fake out on the public to make you think there's some change coming. But it's possible. So anyway, we're hearing the buzz that people want Metro to take over TriMet so the governor can no longer take it. I don't know what are the Oregon polls right now. Let's look. Oregon polls. Let's see. All right. How's it doing over here? Okay, Kotek has taken the lead by 1.6%. It's been up and down, up and down. And I don't know if you can trust any of these polls. I mean, right now I have a hard time believing that Darzan would win. But that would be something, wouldn't it? And I would never vote for a Republican. Although in the case of the governor, I have voted for a Republican once because I wanted to break that Democratic lock on this goddamn crime syndicate. My guess is that Kotek will win. Darzan's positions are pretty extreme, I understand. Drazen, I guess her name is. All right, let's go on with this.
And we return to the regular board meeting. We're no longer the contract review board. Next, we have an ordinance this morning regarding modifications to TriMet Code, Chapter 28. This chapter addresses the personal conduct of individuals who use the transit system. I'll ask General Counsel Devine to read the ordinance by title only.
Thank you, Ms. Board President. Ordinance number 369 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, amending TriMet Code Chapter 28. This is the first reading and public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Devine. Before we hold...
All right, this is basically window dressing because we know that you can't really exclude some. It's not enforceable because there's no way to know who's excluded. And what are you going to do? Get police officers out there to take them off the bus? It's basically public relations. But let's go through it real quick. All right, let's make it bigger so you can see it. Board adopted. It gives the general manager. See, the general manager. See, this is one of the problems I have with this whole system set up. It's like somehow the general manager is the equivalent to a king. They're the king of TriMet. There's no public input allowed. He is king. The general manager to issue a long-term, so he's the only one that can do it. Okay. Long-term exclusions currently opposed who commit serious physical offense, as defined by TriMet Code, is a felony against a person under Oregon law. Oregon law specifies 90 felonies against a person, which include crimes like homicide. Well, I hope so. Currently, the TriMet Code provides a first offense would generally result in long-term exclusion of 6 months to a year. However, the king of TriMet may issue an exclusion of a year or more if the person does immediate and serious threat. All right. I have a lot of problems with this. This is public transportation. This is like walking down the sidewalk. I mean, so what's next? You're going to ban people from walking down the sidewalk. This is a public utility. Only the most heinous of crimes should be charged. Plus, there's also the issue of, I hate to say it, I'm the only one that dares bring it up, and it's very unpopular that I do bring it up. There's also the issue of TriMet instigating a lot of these issues. I mean, every person they throw off the bus into a ditch will now hate TriMet operators, TriMet supervisors. So they have this whole army of people that they've excluded that hate them, or they've left them in the ditch, and that comes back on them in the sense of they get these violent things happen. Oh, cool. Lane is pushing this story. You might get some action. Lane is very good with the media. All right, let's listen to what they say about it.
Hold a public hearing. General Manager Sue, do you have comments concerning this ordinance?
Thanks, President Simmons.
All right, watch him. Watch his body language when he gets done talking. The Mussolini, I call it the Mussolini Act.
And members of the board, as General Counsel Devine said, this is the first reading of this ordinance. A second reading and a vote will occur at your December meeting that will take place. The ordinance will amend the TriMet Code to enhance security for our riders and our employees. It will authorize the general manager to impose increased penalties in the form of exclusions for prohibited conduct on the transit system. And I want to stress this, that this ordinance is about behavioral conduct.
Poor guy can't even read it correctly.
Serious physical offenses against our riders, operators, and other frontline staff that violates the TriMet Code. It is not, and I repeat, it is not about fare evasion at all, period.
Oh, yeah, we just found out about that. We just found out about that. You're lying, and we have proof of it. We just proved it.
Rather, the amendments will expand the code's definition for what types of offenses can lead to a long-term exclusion. In 2017, the board...
I like the way he looked at the camera, though, when he said that. That was good. Did you notice? He actually looked at the camera when he said, this is not about fares.
...of directors voted unanimously to first implement long-term exclusions ranging from 6 months to a lifetime ban for serious physical offenses classified as a felony under state law. Earlier this year, the board voted unanimously to add spitting and propelling other bodily fluids on an employee to the serious offenses punishable by long-term exclusion. You can recall that you did so specifically to show support for our operators and hold people...
Yeah, and if you'd just gotten the right kind of shield, you wouldn't be dealing with this. But you wanted to cheap out on the shields, and so you spent all that money, however much it was, wasted, and now you have to retrofit your buses again. And now we won't have that problem, will we? We won't have the problem of that because you can put up the correct barriers. So this will be a non-issue after they install the barriers correctly.
Accountable for such unacceptable behavior. Now, with Ordinance 369, we ask for support to further protect our
Poor guy, he can't even read it. Look at him.
Operators, other frontline staff, and our riders by expanding what falls under a serious physical offense. The ordinance would add attempted felonies and all Class A misdemeanors against a person. A Class A misdemeanor are the most serious category of misdemeanor, and it include crimes like assault for and bias crimes and hate crimes. The ordinance also simplifies the code by eliminating the distinction between the first and second offenses. Instead, it provides the general manager with the discretion to determine the scope of an exclusion based on...
The general manager. Why isn't it a committee of riders and drivers? That's what they need to. That's what they need for these kind of things. You need a committee, and it has to be riders and drivers or super people that are in the field. Okay, union employees would make up the committee, and a riders advocacy group like Bus Riders Unite. It shouldn't just be one man gets to make all of these decisions. This is what's wrong with statism. You're saying that this guy has the right to rule over us. I say that's wrong. He has no right to be in this position to tell us what to do.
On the seriousness of the offense committed. It should be noted that only one permanent ban has ever been issued by TriMet, and that was...
Yeah, but I can see how they're going crazy right now. I mean, TriMet is out of control. The supervisors, the fair Nazis, the drivers are even out of control. They just throw everybody into the ditch now. Nobody verifies that what they're doing is right. They're basically, man, they're a kill 'em all agency at this point, as far as I'm concerned.
Imposed on a serious and chronic sexual offender. It was imposed on a serious and chronic sexual offender.
They're talking about.
Lastly,
they're talking about, the TriMet barber, Jarrett Walker.
The ordinance would make eligible for long-term exclusions chronic offenders.
What was his name? What was his name? I think it was Jarrett. What was his last? I forgot.
Offenders who have committed behavioral violations on a TriMet code 3 or more times within a 90-day period of time. 3 or more times within a 90-day period of time. Again, we're talking about behaviors such as being disruptive and...
Jarrett Walter, Walter.
Threatening towards others. Again, this is not about fair evasion. And I want to repeat, not about fair evasion.
Yeah, sure.
Any person issued a long-term exclusion can seek a lateral review of that exclusion to show change behavior. Strengthening the TriMet code through this ordinance is just one piece of a larger strategy to increase security for riders and our employees and to improve the customer experience.
It's not going to improve anything. You're full of baloney. This is just window dressing. Should have got the right barriers, and this wouldn't have been a problem. You should have people stationed at transit centers at all times to deal with issues as they come up. Instead, what do? They run these missions. They take 12 people at once and run a mission. Instead of spreading out these people all around the system 24 hours a day, they're just, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, who knows what they're doing? Dispatch can't even get a hold of the goddamn safety team. We've heard the calls. We don't know how to contact the safety team or the crisis team. We don't know how to do that. So what the fuck good is it?
You'll be hearing more from our Chief Operating Officer, Bonnie Todd, and also the Executive Director of Security and Safety, Andrew Wilson, in the security update that's coming during the board brief. President Simmons, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Now we're going to hold a public hearing on Ordinance 369. And this is where...
Why didn't they do it at the beginning? Why didn't they do this first thing? Why did they put this an hour and a half into the meeting? This is obviously something that should have been done right now while all the OPA people were there. Why do you make them sit there for an hour and a half before you deal with these things? I know it's intentional. I know they do this intentionally. Okay, I know that.
Oh.
What? What's the matter?
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
You see that befuddled look in her face there?
General Manager, I just want to know if someone engages in this egregious behavior, how long is the process for actually coming to a conclusion?
And it's not enforceable because how can you enforce it?
In regards to them being either barred or exonerated.
So what I'm going to do, because this is legal, I'm going to bring our attorney up, Eric Van Hagen, because I want to make sure that the right
you got Shelley Devine right there.
Information is provided to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board President Simmons and Director Edwards.
You missed his body language, but I saw it.
The process typically will follow the criminal proceedings if there are criminal proceedings against an individual. There are sometimes restrictions on our ability to access evidence until the criminal proceeding is done. So it has typically sort of followed the conclusion of the criminal process.
Okay. All right, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, okay.
Okay. I just have a concern in our system of government. We generally always judge people as being innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, right. No, we don't. What world are you living in?
And I want to honor that, but at the same time, I get concerned about that kind of behavior not being addressed significantly for the drivers and the riders of our system as well. And that's the reason I asked that question, simply because there could be a time this person or individual may have committed some kind of egregious behavior, but allowed to still ride because there's been no decision.
It's a public utility. Can you ban people from walking down the street? No.
Or any reconciliation.
And I think that's something we're going to look at is, are there ways we can speed up that process after this, if this ordinance is passed and we had.
Hopefully somebody will do something about it. I've spent all my money on a house. I don't have the kind of money I used to be able to do these kind of projects anymore. Somebody needs to challenge this. And that's $10,000 to an attorney just to challenge it, just to start. In the case of my class action, the attorneys ended up getting $660,000 out of that. They're the ones that made the money.
And some additional candidates. Typically up till now, these have been people who have committed felonies. Oftentimes they're already incarcerated because they've committed a felony, and so they're not always out, depending on the situation. By including Class A misdemeanors, I think we need to look at that process and see if we can speed it up, particularly in cases where we have video evidence that is very conclusive and helpful, as opposed to having to rely on witness statements and kind of independently verify and gather information.
Thank you very much.
Before I go to public comment, are there any other comments from board members or questions that you have at this time? Director Way?
Thank you. I know that there's the financial or budget impact to this is none, but can you elaborate on that? I'm sort of assuming that maybe with these additional changes, we may need more legal counsel. We may need to have more processes in place to look at, the implementation of this ordinance if it were to pass. If you can elaborate on the no financial impact.
Sure. Yeah, I think I think what we envision is a work group is probably going to start meeting monthly to evaluate new candidates as they come in. This person might be eligible. Do they meet the criteria? Yes, we're going to issue a long-term exclusion. No, we're not. And we'll sort of track those through the process to conclusion, either issuance or non-issuance. And I think we'll certainly, this is a new area for us. So I think the anticipated no budget impact was based on being able to do that with current resources. But we'll certainly track that to make sure we can continue to fulfill that. I think it's going to be a relatively small number that ultimately get issued based on the case-by-case examination and the specific facts of the offenses that create eligibility.
Okay, so we'll go back and I will see if there's anyone here, either virtually or in person, who would like to come forward and speak to this particular ordinance.
No, they're gone. Nope, they're all left.
Seeing no one
They
is
all left. They all left. That was your plan all along. If you had done this first thing, Opal might have had a comment here. But they're not waiting around for an hour and a half for you to get to this. They have lives. They have things to do.
here. I'll close the hearing, and that concludes our resolutions and ordinances for today. If there's no other business to come before the board, the meeting is adjourned. And we do have a retreat coming up on
So what is
discussion on
this? What's the
passenger
rest of
fares
this?
scheduled for November 9th
an hour and a
from
half
9
left.
to 12:30. Our next board meeting is December 14th.
No.
And still today,
No, your next board meeting is November 9th, unless this is, wait a minute, is that not a board meeting coming up? Oh yeah, it's a retreat. No comments allowed.
we have two items on the agenda for a board briefing. But let's take a 5-minute break.
All right, so they got more shit to do. Okay, that's enough of this anyway. So over and out.